Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Fritz. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for Chime. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to today's Chime Innovation Beyond the Edge. We're in the middle of our second season, having heard from Ryan Smith, CIO of Intermountain Healthcare, Sarah Vaezi, Chief Digital Strategy Officer at Providence, Tanya Townsend, CIO, LCMC Health, and Sarah Richardson at Optum Care, are ready for this second season. Those 4 sessions, along with the 14 sessions from our first season of Innovation Beyond the Edge, are all available on demand through the Chime website. Innovation Beyond the Edge is designed to share creative problem solving and highlight innovation successes implemented by your peers. I'm very excited to hear from a great friend today, Heather Nelson, the SVP and CIO of the University of Chicago Medicine. Today's session, we're talking about RPA, automation through bots. It's going to be really exciting. We've also got a couple of other outstanding sessions coming up in December. On December 2nd, we're going to hear from Dr. John Halamka, President of Mayo Clinic Platform, and December 9th, Scott Powder, the Chief Strategy Officer for Advocate Aurora Health. I'd like to give a special thank you to Clearsense and Nordic, our seasoned supporters, and in particular to Nordic for supporting this session. We know that you're incredibly busy at this time, so we appreciate you joining us today. Very quickly, why is Chime presenting this series? Quite frankly, there are many challenges and problems, but also there are opportunities here, opportunities for creative problem solving. We want to highlight the creative problem solving and the innovation successes of your peers and share them with the Chime community. Now, I'd like to hand it over to Zach Selleck, VP of Client Partnerships at Nordic, to introduce our speaker for today. Zach?
Perfect. Thank you, Jonathan. Good morning, everybody. As Jonathan mentioned, my name is Zach Selleck, and I'm the Vice President of Client Partnerships at Nordic. Nordic provides end-to-end solutions that our healthcare clients, all the way from staffing to optimization to advisory help. With over 700 consultants and 280 clients, we are well positioned to assist in projects across a health system. It's my pleasure today to introduce Heather Nelson, who's going to be speaking about RPA Governance. Heather Nelson is a Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer for the Information Technology Division at the University of Chicago Medicine. In the role of SVP and CIO, she has responsibilities for supporting all of the information management systems, clinical and business administrative, infrastructure, clinical engineering, IT support services, and virtual health and RPA technologies, IT project management office, integration, reporting, and analytics capabilities and technologies, as well as the privacy and IT security functions for the University of Chicago Medicine. Her teams are comprised of talented IT professionals that are dedicated to supporting patient care and care teams throughout the health system and in our communities through a shared service operating model. It is because of this dedicated team that Heather was most recently named 2020 Chicago CIO of the Year by the Chicago's Executives Club and the Chicago chapters of the Society of Information Management and the Association of Information Technology Professionals. Prior to joining the University of Chicago Medicine, Heather spent time at Bay State Health in Springfield, Massachusetts as a Senior Director of Applications and IT Operations, including an interim CIO assignment and 10 years at Spectrum Health in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with roles in laboratory services, case management, and increasing leadership responsibilities within the Information Technology Division. Heather holds a bachelor's degree in biology from Alma College in Alma, Michigan, as well as a master's in healthcare administration from Central Michigan University. She is a certified healthcare CIO through the Chime organization. She is active in community organizations, including the 2020 chairwoman for the Chicago American Heart Association Go Red for Women and Go STEM committees. At this time, I will turn it over to Heather.
Great. Thanks so much, Zach. I appreciate that introduction, and thanks, Jonathan and Karen, for having me here today. So I'm going to pull up my presentation. Hopefully folks can see that. Great. So thank you. So today, instead of getting techie, I thought I would use the time to talk about evolution that we've been embarking on bringing governance and strong process to our RPA program. And I want to share a little bit about why we are on this journey and what brought us here, talk a little bit about our RPA Center of Excellence, talk about our governance, and then touch on our technology platform and the security concerns and processes that we put in place to support this work. So I think all of us agree that a bot strategy, automation strategy is scalable. And we have found, and I'm sure many of you as well, that there's some quantifiable ROI when implementing these technologies and automating many business processes. What we also wanted to do as part of that, and holding our partners accountable, was develop a center of excellence, making sure that we have clear roles and responsibilities for the organization, because we recognize, and I think as some of us as CIOs that may be on the call, we know that there's departments that like to think, fancy themselves IT professionals, maybe in your HR departments or your finance departments, and they think that they've got the answer. So part of addressing that or supporting that is to make sure that we developed a center of excellence with clear roles and responsibilities. Defining that governance model was also key, making sure that we had the right stakeholders around the table to properly qualify, quantify, prioritize, and then measure those processes and see, are we getting that ROI? And then lastly, making sure that we've got a scalable technology platform and we've got implementation architecture that makes it easy to bring these up. We don't want these projects to take 6, 8, 12 months. We want them to be quick, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, to see if we can get that value back. So when we started this work, we wanted to identify with the business, where were we at? So target our maturity level, recognizing that it was going to take us a while to scale that. We also wanted to define those ROI goals. Where could we get productivity gains? Where there's some quantifiable cost savings, not just cost avoidance. And then, more importantly, what were those success criteria and those KPIs that were part of this that we needed to continue to measure? So once we turned on the automation, that business lead was working with their teams to track that. We are very much a lean organization, so we do have managing for daily improvement stand-ups and huddles on a daily, weekly basis. So we want to make sure that we have the KPIs to measure that. It was very important to align with our key stakeholders. So I mentioned HR, I mentioned finance. We all know that when it comes to automation, supply chain is a major stakeholder, as well as our revenue cycle leaders. So we brought all of them to the table along with members of my team to build what exactly this governance should look like. And then we didn't want to boil the ocean, and I think all of us can appreciate that. It's very easy to get excited and think we can do everything. But what we did is try to bring some structure to say, let's pick the top 5. Let's have a good sampling, but let's pick the top 5 and really build these out and measure these before we open up the floodgates. So that was kind of that shared responsibility between the business and IT. But from an IT perspective, I know it's important for us to have standards in place. So what we did was we developed a self-service center of excellence. And that's being led by my executive director of data integration innovation. We wanted to make sure that we have a tight infrastructure. And so that's dependent on the vendors that we select, making sure that we've got a repeatable operational model. So once we identify what that use case is, that we can quickly move it through our life cycle, our development life cycle. And then making sure that we have good policies and standards in place. So if HR says, you know what, we've got this bot vendor that we want to use to do talent review, that's fine, HR, you can do that. But here are the policies and the standards that you need to work within so that we can support this. So from a maturity model, we're here. And maybe some of you are a little further up, but we're being realistic about this. And this is where we want to get to. And we believe that over the next 3 to 4 months, we'll be at that level 3 because we're starting with very solid, quantifiable use cases that we believe are going to bring value back to the organization. So let's talk a little bit about the Center of Excellence. And in this, it is about people, process, and technology. And I think all of us can appreciate the governance piece of this. So we, at the beginning, identified that we wanted to partner with a technology vendor that had both onshore and offshore blended development support. Someone, again, that was scalable, could grow with us. But we also wanted to make sure that we built up our teams internally that they could support this. And you can imagine for some of our team members, this is really the fun stuff. This is the stuff they've been hearing about, and now they get to lay their hands on it and they get to work on it. And then also, I think the third bullet point under people is, again, what I talked about earlier, empowering the business through this federated model, but yet still having those guardrails around it. Our process, so from an intake process, we do leverage ServiceNow, and we do have a request process for an RPA or a bot request that may come from the business. We have standards and architecture guidelines. So as we assess the request with the business, we do this in partnership with the business, making sure that, again, it lines up with our Center of Excellence, that we can support it, and that, more importantly, that it's scalable. Having a one-off here or there can get to be expensive. We have a tight development life cycle, so you'll see that a little later. And then making sure that once we implement, that we're monitoring, we're supporting. If we have to tweak along the way, that we have those processes in place. From a technology department perspective, making sure we have a development and a test environment, of course, having a production environment, deploying our change management process. So making sure if the technology is ready and the business is ready, then we're ready to go. And then again, how do we monitor those on the back end, making sure that the bots are doing what we built them to do. And then the governance piece, aligning with the business, making sure we have clear selection criteria, and I'll provide some examples of that later on. And there's just some things that may sound like we can automate, but can't really. And that's part of the vetting process that we do up front with the business to make sure that they understand the whys. So you can see here our development life cycle. It's a little bit of a busy slide, but I think folks can appreciate this. When we get the request in, we identify it, we do the analysis, with our vendor partner, but more importantly with the business, with team members from my innovation team. And then we start to do the design, we implement, and then we continue to monitor. And you can see below the different roles that are important for all of these steps. So from the business, we want a sponsor. While there'll be some IT RPAs that we're going to implement, we want to make sure that we have strong operational leadership. We have a process manager, and usually that's someone that's really close to the day-to-day. And so you can see through each of these phases, so analyze, design, implement, and monitor, where these roles come into play. As part of the due diligence with the business unit and with IT, you can see where the different tasks and responsibilities are. The governance team really looks for that benefit realization. We want to see the hard and fast. This governance here at UChicago Medicine, this group is led by myself and co-led with our Chief Operating Officer. It's a tremendous partnership. You can imagine his scope is very large, but having him sit and help to prioritize is really important, because again, it's not IT wagging the tail wagging the dog. It's really operations leading with IT enabling behind the scenes. So again, we've got people, process, and infrastructure. The people part, there's ownership. We've got, the roles and responsibilities clearly outlined. There, from a project management perspective, we leverage our PMO standards on how we communicate. We partner closely with the vendor on the training. We work really hard on the prioritization, the success criteria, and then again, that center of excellence that my team has stood up is really behind the scenes, making sure we're tracking and monitoring, providing feedback to the business, also hearing from the business on what's working, what's not working, and if we have to adjust, we adjust. So again, we see the escalations, but more importantly, we want to make sure that the implementation is tight. So it's really important. I think all of us can appreciate that we've got strong operational leadership, foundational, that they're there to model the process, to define the KPIs and monitor those, to look for things that are working, not working, and this should always be a continuous improvement. And when things have to escalate and we have to shift gears, then we can do that. But it's a constant give and take. And thus far, knock on wood, it's been going very, very well. So as it pertains to that, the RACI, you can see the key processes and activities, what roles are in play, and the outcomes and deliverables. And all of you will have access to these slides. If this is something that you've been thinking about, maybe this is something that resonates with you or something that you've been hoping to implement, but this is what we've pulled together. So defining the qualification prerequisite, making sure we have success criteria, getting the policies and procedures approved. And you can see where business and IT come together. So IT isn't, again, the only one driving this. The technology isn't the only piece driving this, that there's a lot of operational work that comes with this. So here's how we are working on this. And again, it's not rocket science, but just taking some best practices, leveraging ServiceNow, our tool for requests. And we've got some forms that we have in place where these come in. And we take a look at, is this something that's highly repetitive? Is there minimal coding required? And do we see some, significant cost savings? So as the requests come in, we can box this and think about, based on the business value and the complexity, so that speed to value, what's going to be our priorities. So this is just some more detail. So based on the complexity, what are the number of integration points? How many systems are we trying to knit together? How many tasks, whether they're manual or automated, we need to knit together. So this is just an example of our scoring criteria. So if we have something with less complexity but high value, you can imagine those are going to be the ones that maybe we want to knock out first. And again, measure and see, is this the right thing to do? And what's nice of having a partner like our COO is making sure, again, that we're aligned in our annual operating plan, that we're aligned with the strategies that all of us should be focused on, and making sure that we're meeting business objectives. So this is just an example, folks, of a recent meeting that we had a few weeks ago where we've identified our top 5. So you can see here we had requests come in from supply chain, finance, Lifecycle, and even pharmacy and radiology. So what we've done is we've put them through all the scoring criteria, and we talked, and you can see under each of these, for example, the radiology scheduling by phone got tremendous business value, about $1.6 million per year, but it's quite complex. So while we can appreciate this is one we want to do, it's not going to be one that we're going to do the top 5 on. And then you can see some others that, we can save 7 FTEs with with some processes in pharmacy. And so we've started that one. We've also implemented, as of last week, the first one under supply chain, number 1, which is saving about a half an FTE. So again, this is the scorecard, and we put this through that algorithm. Happy to share it with you, but this is how we're managing it. We're leveraging data, right? It's great to say all these are really good ideas, but we have to put some construct around it and be able to quantify these in a way that's meaningful. So again, our operational model, we could have brought it all in and said it has to come through IT. We could have continued, you know what, supply chain, you go get your bot, finance, HR, etc. We'll just kind of manage. But what the organization has agreed to is a hybrid model. So controlling the release and planning, doing those 6 to 8 week sprints. Everyone's agreeing to the standards. And then we have that governance, and there's that strong collaboration between business and IT. We're not in the business to say no. We don't want to say no. We want to say yes. And having these standards in place allows us to say yes a lot more frequently, but also gives the business opportunities to kind of drive their goals as well. So I'm sure all of you get a lot of emails from vendors. I know I do. But we did some independent analysis, and we reviewed 3 vendors: UiPath, Blue Prism, which was brought to us from our HR department, and then Automation Anywhere. And we just leveraged Gartner and some other research to see where these lined up. And it was our decision, our organizational decision, to start with UiPath. And the reason why we chose them is we've also partnered with Accenture to help us launch our Center of Excellence and get us off the ground so that eventually we can bring everything back in-house. So this is where, this was our due diligence, our analysis, and we made that decision. Now, we do have some of our business partners in HR who've been looking at other systems that they want to bring in because they're very niche, and we're fine with that as long as they're following the standards and the Center of Excellence that we've put in place, and they're partnering closely with IT to make sure that the architecture is scalable, etc. So this is just an example of some of the selection criteria that we used when we were looking at some of the vendors that were brought to us. Again, you may have others or may have thought about others as you've been on your journey, but these are some of the things that we worked with the business on as we were doing our due diligence for what vendor was going to rise to the top. Again, we're not being exclusive, but we wanted to at least start and see how far we could get. This is our reference architecture for those folks that appreciate this. But again, this was something that we wanted to make sure for our teams, for our Center of Excellence, that our teams understood what we needed to have in place from an architecture. So if a vendor comes in and is brought to us, we're going to put that vendor through these paces and making sure that they can meet our objectives so that, again, we have scalable solutions, we have repeatable solutions, and we can get the value out. And then lastly, for those of you that think about these things, and I know my CISO does, but as we're introducing these new types of technologies and processes, making sure that we have information security at the table as well to help us with our architecture reviews and also the monitoring. Because we know that, we've got hackers out there, we've got, actors out there that use these types of technologies to get into systems. We don't want them to be retrained. So that's why it's really important that when we're doing the design, when we're looking at the architecture, that we make sure that it's something that we can monitor, that we can keep safe. So we segregate the access to data, as you can see of some of our guidelines, and these are just the guidelines that we've put in place for ourselves. We want to make sure that single sign-on and Active Directory integration is always in place. Encryption is important. We have an architecture review board gate that our architects, so our application architects, our infrastructure architects, our integration architects, our security architects, they all come together and they review it and with all of their lenses on it before we push anything into production. And then, of course, we have vulnerability assessments that are done internally. Our teams do that internally to make sure that we're meeting our objectives. So that's it in a nutshell. Again, I truly believe that innovation can come at all levels, and for us, it was really about the people and the process, because we know that there's great technologies out there to support the business drivers that we have. But standing this up for our business, I will tell you, has been very rewarding. My teams are excited about it, and we're quickly rolling things out. And because sometimes people feel like it takes forever to get a project live, and doing some of these quick wins has shown the organization that if we all come together, we all have agreement, we can get things done really quickly and bring value back to the organization. So with that, I'll stop. And if anyone has questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Heather. Really appreciate the presentation. We've got some questions that are coming into the chat function here, so please feel free to put more in there. Heather, I'd like to actually start off with talking about kind of the collaboration. You mentioned it several times, collaboration between IT and business. Were there any particular challenges or interesting things that you saw, through COVID times, especially kind of teams being apart, anything that that you saw either your teams overcame that were interesting, but just anything to expand upon that kind of collaboration between business and IT?
I think what brought us to this point was really, to be honest, I was sick of hearing the business going out and looking for systems and kind of doing it rogue, because that probably never happens in anyone else's organization. It might just be UChicago Medicine, but it was really about, okay, there's a need out there, there's a business need, IT needs to be at the table. So how do we bring these groups together? So this group actually came together, Jonathan, before, like pre-COVID. So we were already working on this together, and obviously we had to get through the spring like everyone did, and then later this summer we kind of picked back up. And because we had built that collaboration and built the governance earlier in the year, people were still excited about it, and we didn't have to go backwards. We just continued forward. So we are still remote, many of our team members, and we just continue to check in with each other. We have regular check-ins. The technicians have regular check-ins, and it's just all about working in a new world. But I think because we started early and we were together early, we were able to transition.
Excellent. We've got several questions from a good friend of Chime, Stephanie Lahr. First one, how are the various operational leaders identifying what processes they believe are amenable to an automation tool?
So that's a great question, Stephanie. And that's really because we've started with the stakeholders of HR, supply chain, finance, RevCycle, and then we do have some clinical spaces, revenue and pharmacy. We've got leaders identified in each of those areas that we can sit down with and have the conversation. So what my team has developed is kind of like a playbook of questions to ask. And a lot of that's just leveraging our PMO standards. What problem are you trying to solve? And we push that into that algorithm about, does it align, how many tasks are you trying to, automate? Does this align with strategies? What is your ROI? So we kind of put them through and ask them those questions, and they have to answer it. And then that's what we leverage. Sometimes, and then trust me, there have been a few that have come through that didn't meet the requirements. We couldn't automate it, whether it was because the technology wasn't able to do it or it just didn't fit with what we were trying to do. So we're trying to, in your other half of your questions, is there a base education? we're leveraging those stakeholders that are part of our RPA governance to be the leads, and then to go back to their areas to bring things forward. So they're kind of the shepherds of the information back and forth, or the champions of it. And we hope, that they are tightly aligned with the operations and know the day-to-day.
Another question from Prasad is, did any of your automation cases involve OCR along with RPA?
Yes, some of them are, and I can't tell you, Prasad, exactly which one. I'll have to get back with you on that. But yes, they did. And so from an architecture perspective, I know Sharik, who is my executive director in this space, is looking into what that looks like.
From Joe, he asks, which part of the process was most challenging to put into place?
Getting everyone to agree to start with UiPath, and letting folks know I was not going to sign the contracts for Olive or for some of the other ones that they were bringing forward. That's when I did have to say no, that we wanted to start with 5 use cases. We wanted, we felt UiPath had a broad array of automation processes that they've done in the past. Accenture has done a lot with not only clinical areas, but the rev cycle spaces and supply chain. So we wanted to make sure that, again, I didn't want to start with 10 vendors. We did start with 1. And I see some of the questions about, well, how come you're letting others come in? Because I think we all agree there's not a silver bullet, for one RPA vendor. And there are some that are a little more niche-y, especially around HR. And so I'm okay, but we want to prove out that this process with UiPath and Accenture is going to work first, and let the others come later.
And kind of building on that question and comments, Tom had asked about essentially the cost of UI, not knowing the cost of the UiPath platform, but wouldn't it be more streamlined, cost effective to use one? But it sounds like some are more niche, and you want to get that kind of in place and show the success and have that early win in place. So are you open to a certain number, or what kind of selection process are you anticipating down the road for additional bot platforms?
Yeah. No, Ty, that's a great question. Again, we want to see as much juice that we could squeeze out of UiPath for sure. And again, we're starting with those 5, and you can see we've got 10 on the list. And we believe that UiPath is going to be able to meet the objectives, all the requirements. That is our goal, to be honest. In talking with my executive director, he would very much like to, see again, how much can we get out of UiPath. But I will tell you, there are a couple, especially in the HR world, there's just some of those niche ones. And even then, I've said to the HR team, let's try one. Let's see how many use cases in HR we can get out of this one that you're proposing. But you're absolutely right. We want to keep it streamlined and cost effective, and not have 50 vendors. That's definitely not my goal. If we have 2 to 3, I'd be okay with that. I think that's manageable. But we want UiPath to really drive this.
And Stephanie asks another question related to whether it was strategic to start with back-end processes first, then to potentially move to clinical use cases. You referenced the radiology appointments as possibly being along those lines, and to really comment about automating those more clinical tasks and patient-facing tasks.
Yeah, based on our review, and based on some of the playbooks with Accenture and UiPath, those back-end processes, especially around supply chain and rev cycle, when we did our scoring criteria, they were very simple to implement. They weren't as complex. Those clinical use cases, specifically the ones that we're looking at for pharmacy, for 340B, and for radiology, they're a little bit more complex. So we felt as a governance group that we wanted to get some wins. We wanted to prove out UiPath, we wanted to prove out Accenture, and more importantly, we wanted to prove out our Center of Excellence and our scoring criteria. And like I said, we launched our first one last week. We've got another one coming. Actually, we're going to try one of the supply chain ones. We'll go live in mid-October in the next couple of weeks. But that was really our decision, Stephanie, was let's try these less complex ones first, get our feet wet, get comfortable, and then we're definitely going to tackle those clinical use cases because the ROI is tremendous.
Simon Lynn, another great friend of Chime, asks, how do you communicate with the business leaders on the potential of using bots, and how do you manage the expectations?
That's a good question. Because we've just started, it's just really communicating that there's technologies out there, that there's a process out there. If you want to get in line, if you want to be part of it, here's the process. I do leverage our COO's operational, his kind of direct reports meetings that he has once a month that I'm part of. This is where Jason and I will bring some of these things to. One, to tell people maybe they didn't know the good things that were going on, and allow his leaders to talk about this, and then provide a forum and a format where folks can bring things to. And we've gotten some folks thinking about it. So there is a balance of not opening the floodgates, and I think that's why the prioritization process and the algorithm that we use is so important, because there's always so many good ideas, and letting the governance kind of say what's going to go first, second, and third without IT having to do that has been really helpful. So I hope I answered your question, Simon.
Jeff asks, for those organizations that are really just starting to look at RPA, what would you suggest as good initial use cases? And he references 340B on your list, and is that a good starting point initially?
Yeah, again, I think it kind of ties in a little bit with Stephanie asked. We start, because we wanted to get some things out the door and improve the value, we started with those back end. I would recommend just going through this, if you've got a strong supply chain partner, you've got a strong rev cycle partner, I would start with those, because most of these RPA vendors that's what they've kind of grown up in, is really automating those more task-driven processes that require FTEs. And you can see some of those, we're going to get the ROI. So 340B, definite ROI. That one's kind of not as complex as the radiology one. That's why we're tackling some of those next. But start with the back end processes just to get your feet wet and get comfortable, and because those will show the value quickly.
So we have a couple of questions related to hiring additional staff, or leveraging existing team members. And I know that during your presentation you referenced your innovation team. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the team members that were involved with this, if you needed to hire, train. Is there a separate innovation team that was tied into this? It'd be helpful to really expand upon that, please.
Sure, that's a great question, Garima and Kathy, but we're leveraging Accenture. They're at the table with us. They're sitting side by side with my developers. So my executive director, Sharik, has programmers and developers on his team, and these folks are learning this. So we're kind of training up our internal resources. Now, I anticipate that I will be asking as I move into fiscal year 22 for some additional resources, especially if we're showing and we're proving the value. Because guess what? If we're getting the value out of this and we're showing hard savings, those hard savings should be able to fund this work. So that's really what I'm hoping for, is that we're going to be able to fund the support of this technology and these processes by implementing. So I'm starting internal, and that's why starting small was important for me, because I knew I couldn't do 20 out of the gate. We're starting with 5. We've got a nice plan for the next couple months, and then we can kind of pick back up. So training, using our vendor, using Accenture, using UiPath to partner with my teams to train them up.
Thank you, Heather. We're going to transition to the breakout rooms here shortly, which are for Chime member hospital leaders only. Is there anything that you'd like to kind of say in closing, or to finish off your comments and the questions?
No, thank you very much again for the great questions. I know we're all on these different journeys and different parts of the journey, but there's no silver bullet, and start small and just make sure you have tight governance and strong operational leadership with you, because IT can't do it all, even though they think we can.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'd like to once again thank our supporters for Innovation Beyond the Edge for the entire season, Clearsense and Nordic, as well as for this particular session. I'd like to specifically thank Nordic for supporting today's session, and Zach for being here with us. We'll be sending out an email to all attendees that include a survey letting us know your feedback. We're hoping that the program meets your needs, so please let us know if it does or it doesn't. It'll help us to continue to improve offerings over time. Last but not least, thank you again for your time and your attention. It'll take a few minutes to distribute everyone, but enjoy the breakout sessions and have a wonderful day.